We can answer the questions about process, but really they're the ones that are communicating our value for us, which is the holy grail of communicating value. So questions about this, about what we did here?
Well, I see the correlation. I'm just curious about how they determined 78% was.
Yeah, in this particular organization, they don't have a history of rigorously examining things and examining data. So they figured that there were certain things that happened that accounted for about 20%. I think 20 to 25% is what they said. And since they couldn't determine that it was either 20% or 25, they kind of put it in the middle and did what we call a swag, which is a sophisticated wild-ass guess. Now, in many organizations, that's not rigorous enough, and that wouldn't really be something that I would want to present as a senior leader. But in this particular organization, it aligned with their culture. And they did have some more data. What's that?
They presented it.
And they presented it, not me. Yeah, exactly. This is actually from an example where I was a consultant to the organization. This is not from an organization that I worked for. So, but I did partner with the learning and performance side to help them facilitate this whole process. So, and there's a lot of other data that they could have gathered to determine a very specific percentage of this 21% increase that's attributable to us. They could have looked historically. Well, we did look historically, and sales remained steady before we did anything. So they really weren't on an upswing. They could have looked back further in time to see if sales were trending, but just hadn't trended over that 10 weeks. They could have looked at if there were other variables that were accounting for the sales increase, what typically has been the increase in sales when that variable is present. And they could have subtracted that out of our contribution. Yeah, so they could have done it more rigorously, but that level of being rigorous didn't align with their culture. So they chose to do it this way. Other questions about the process? This is really how we can demonstrate our value very tangibly. Again, this actually speaks to what we've talked about at the very beginning when we were talking about why we get fired, about business acumen, about being in the business, being present in the business, not just being a function of the business, and being subservient to what the business wants, and also at the same time trying to drive compliance. It's a lot more than that. This is demonstrating that we have a strategically valuable role in the organization without having to demonstrate that we play a strategically valuable role in the organization. So talent management, really, what we do in talent management is responsible for those people processes. It's that holistic and strategic approach to the employment life cycle. The senior leadership, which, as was pointed out, we're part of, in most organizations, not all, sets strategy. And then hopefully they cascade strategy throughout the organization. In real life, not in just looking at best practices, but in real practices, in real practical terms, how that strategy is set is different at every organization. So how that happens in your organization is something that you'll need to learn if you haven't already done so. And many of you probably already have. Influencing the way that happens is another very worthy battle, if it is a battle at all. But it's a very worthy battle to help them align more with best practices. And there's lots of data to support where you want to go. In fact, what's really interesting is that the balanced scorecard was not developed by someone in our area, in talent management. Kaplan and Norton are at Harvard Business School. They're in the business school. They're not in HRD, Human Resource Development, or any of our area, any area of talent management. So for a practitioner that's really in the business world to say, we've got to pay attention to the learning and performance goals that we have in an organization because they're predictive measures of our success, that's huge. And that's data that we can bring to the table in arguing for this type of an approach. So demonstrating our value, we want to link specifically what we do to the desired outcomes of the business. So what other questions might you have about that? Or comments do you have about that? Anything that we've gone over, whether it be the definition of talent management, or how strategy is set, or how we align what we do with strategy. One final point that I want to make is that being able to demonstrate that we're not doing something because it doesn't align with strategy is just as important as demonstrating what we do to drive the execution of strategy, because it also helps to show our alignment. But often, as we change things, we forget to communicate the value of not doing something. For example, in this project here, we discontinued any sales training that didn't align with that process. How much did that save? In this particular organization, it was all instructor-led. We were flying salespeople from all over the country to the corporate headquarters for 2 weeks of sales training. Discontinuing that saved the company a ton of money. So that could have been part of the ROI from this. If you have any questions that you think of moving forward, please take down my email address. This slide deck is in your presentation materials that's on your disk. Also on this disk is the strategy guide to winning the war for talent, which is a compilation of a lot of different articles that we found that have tactics and techniques that we can use to engage in talent management more effectively. That's a really well put together by our stellar marketing team. So if you have any questions moving forward, I love to get emails from people, especially people that have attended a presentation, not just spam. So I encourage you to email me. And if there's nothing further, then I'm done. And I want to thank you all for your participation.
Thank you.